Hi, I'm Nico Falcone.
I'm Luke Ferron.
I'm Chris Papadopoulos.
And I'm Chris. Boys out!
Hello, welcome to Channel 7 News. Today we are talking about ISIS.
Is ISIS going to become recognized as a country by the United Nations?
First, we'll have to look about how these problems originated in this part of the world.
Alright, so let's start from the beginning. At the end of World War I, the new League of Nations, under the leadership of Britain and France, created the Mandate System. Under this system, conquered lands were placed in one of three categories, A, B, or C, and were assigned to a victorious power to govern. The countries of the Arab world were declared to be level A mandates, meaning that they were at a very advanced stage of development and would only have a short period of British or French control. The mandate system changed territorial boundaries, which angered many people who were put into countries they didn't want to be in. Arabs eventually tried to start recapturing the Middle East and unite into one state. ISIS is merely the most recent in a parade of horrible groups, Shiite and Sunni, religious and secular, murderous, and even more murderous, Boiselle. In essence, this feud in the Middle East is one giant civil war. The group began in 2004 as Al-Qaeda in Iraq, before rebranding as ISIS 2 years later. It was an ally of and had similarities with Osama bin Laden's Al-Qaeda. Both are radical anti-Western militant groups devoted to establishing an independent Islamic state in the region. But ISIS, unlike Al-Qaeda, which disowned the group in early 2014, has proven to be much more brutal and more effective at controlling territory it has seized. ISIS is putting governing structures in place to rule the territories the group conquers once the dust settles on the battlefield. The group seized control of Mosul, Iraq's second largest city, this summer. But its power base is in Raqqa, eastern Syria, where ISIS is now in control of more than half of Syria's oil assets, along with a number of oil fields in Iraq. ISIS took advantage of the increasing political and societal Sunni alienation, and it became an important actor in the insurgent organizations fighting the American army, which became stronger after the withdrawal of the American troops at the end of 2001, and spread to Syria after the civil war began in March 2011.
Members of these two sects, Sunnis and Shiites, have coexisted for centuries and share many fundamental beliefs and practices, but they also differ in doctrine, ritual, law, theology, and religious organization. Shia constitute about 10% of all Muslims. The great majority of the world's more than 1.5 billion Muslims are Sunnis. Estimates suggest the figure is somewhere between 85 and 95%. The divide between the Sunnis and Shiites is traced to 632 AD, when the Islamic prophet Muhammad died and debate emerged about who should be his successor. Both sides agreed that Allah is the one true God and that Muhammad was his messenger. The one group, which eventually became the Shiites, felt Muhammad's successor should be someone in his bloodline, while the other, which became the Sunnis, felt a pious individual who would follow the prophet's customs was acceptable. This issue has caused constant unrest in that region of the world ever since. Sunnis believe the position of the caliph should be a position to which one is elected by the religious leaders of the Islamic community, and not dependent on direct lineage from Muhammad. Most Sunnis and Shiites are liberal, although not by Western standards. In peaceful and prosperous times, there is little conflict between them, but both have more extreme factions as well. Some Shiites, for example, have a tradition of valuing martyrdom that came out of their early experiences with the conflict with the Sunnis. The most famous Sunni extremist faction is the Wahhabi sect, one of which Osama bin Laden is possibly a member. It is characterized by radical fundamentalism.
Now let's go to the structure of ISIS. The structure of ISIS consists of many leaders for different regions. Baghdadi is the supreme political and religious leader in ISIS territory. The Islamic State has a Shura Council, which makes all its decisions by consulting, that can theoretically depose of the caliphate, but all members are appointed by Baghdadi. ISIS leadership has direct command and control over its fighters in Iraq and Syria. ISIS also has a Sharia Council, as well as councils responsible for security, military affairs, media, and finance. The Sharia Council guides all aspects of Muslim life. It is derived primarily from the Quran and the Sunnah, the sayings, practices, and teachings of the Prophet Muhammad. Abu Ali al-Anbari is Baghdadi's deputy who oversees operations in Syria. Abu Muhammad al-Adnani is the official spokesman for ISIS. Abu Arkan al-Amiri is the head of ISIS 10-member Shura Council. Arkan Tayyamuzovich Bitirishvili is a senior commander based in Syria and a member of the Shura Council. This makes up all of the most important guys according to ISIS government. You also may be wondering how ISIS funds itself. ISIS funds its operations by selling oil and electricity. It is exploiting almost every oil and gas field in Syria. It also funds itself by emptying captured banks and exporting money through kidnappings and taxation. Its highly skilled army fighters with billions of dollars worth of stolen American and Russian-made armored vehicles and heavy weapons.
Now, this is part of combating ISIS. Iraqi forces, backed by American airstrikes and advised by American officers, have been making strides in Anbar province, slowly taking back territory from the Islamic State. Shiite militias supported by Iran are carrying out kidnappings and murders and restricting the movement of Sunni Arab civilians. A growing number of critics are warning that American-supported military victories need to be backed up with political reconciliation between Sunni and Shiite Arabs, something Iran is working against, and with determined efforts to rebuild cities so that civilians can return. It has become clear that although the United States and Iran both want to defeat Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, they have been unable to work together to promote unity in the country, even after a deal was reached last year over Iran's nuclear program, which many hoped would allow them to cooperate more closely. As the United States supports the Iraqi army and some local tribal fighters in the battling Islamic State, Iran has quietly pursued its objectives in the province. The Shiite militias have prevented civilians from leaving Islamic State territory, while resisting calls to allow humanitarian aid to reach the city. 10 NATO states have begun discussions to form a military coalition to fight the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, and 11 in Iraq, in one of the most concrete steps from the international community so far in acting against their increasingly bloody insurgency. One track is proposed by a number of individual allies that are determined to take the necessary steps to help Iraq to stop the terror organization. Another track is, if a request is received from the Iraqi government, we are ready to consider defense capacity building mission. In the Middle East, prominent Sunnis want to fight ISIS and are asking for U.S. money, arms, and training. A leading Iraqi politician had an urgent request that the White House provide arms and training for his 10,000-man Sunni militia. Other Sunni leaders appear to be following his lead and asking the U.S. to support their militias, which they claim are willing to take the arms against the jihadist group. As the scramble to join the fight grows, U.S. coalition forces are training thousands of members of the Iraqi army and Kurdish forces for a ground offensive. A second awakening would also help to advance important U.S. goal in Iraq, integrating Sunnis back into the Iraqi military and government. U.S. has pushed a plan to form National Guard brigades in Iraq's 18 provinces, largely to encourage Sunnis in the western and northern parts of the country to defend their territory. Muhtar Shawkat, a former member of parliament, said he would like the U.S. to endorse his militia to win funding from Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, and believes America's role is essential. A second Sunni awakening is a good idea if the U.S. can be sure that Iraqi warlords appealing for arms, money, and training can muster the necessary strength to defeat their jihadist foe. Pentagon planners say 50,000 troops, backed by U.S. air power, are needed to break ISIS hold. By cutting off ISIS supply lines from Syria, besieging the militants in Mosul and other Iraqi strongholds, and then systematically picking the jihadists apart. Shawkat envisions an Iraq composed of self-governing Sunni, Shiite, and Kurdish regions, with Baghdad serving as the country's capital inside a federal zone.
Trends show that ISIS is targeting predominantly males in their early 20s. The abject poverty and unemployment among the youth naturally makes them easy prey for radicalization. ISIS searches for people with the passion for Islam. These people are easy prey for ISIS because they are easily radicalized. The Islamic State appeals to those who are looking to get out of their boring lives, change themselves, and become a part of something they find both worthy and attainable. They are driven by personal dissatisfaction, grievances, indignation, and a sense of adventure. ISIS offers them a role of power they have never had before. This is a popular reason for most women joining because they live in a traditional society that prevents female autonomy. Some people join ISIS out of concern for their own safety because they don't want ISIS to hurt them. Others feel obligated to oppose the Iraqi government's routine mistreatment of Sunnis. ISIS uses propaganda effectively to get people to join ISIS. They are able to use propaganda to brainwash people. Social media, videos, literature, online magazines, and even introducing people to young group members are all methods used by ISIS recruiters looking to radicalize young Muslims. The tendency of people to follow a group of people is exploited by ISIS because most attacks are done with the family and friends. ISIS recruiters will convince people that their family does not love them because they have become Muslim, and ISIS will love them and be their family. Finally, ISIS recruiters are even able to convince people that Muslims like them are being targeted for elimination unless they first eliminate the impure Muslims. Radicals find a unique motivator for each individual person they recruit.
Well, holy Shiite, gentlemen, that is a lot of information.
Moving on to the attacks. On February 15, 2015, in Libya, ISIS released a video that appeared to show its militants in Libya beheading a group of Egyptian Christians who had been kidnapped in January.
On March 20th, 2015, in Yemen, an ISIS affiliate claimed responsibility for coordinated suicide strikes on Zaidi Shiite mosques that killed more than 130 people during Friday prayer.
On October 10th, 2015, in Turkey, 2 explosions killed more than 100 people who had gathered for a peace rally in Turkey's capital. Turkish officials believe ISIS is responsible.
On October 31st, 2015, in Egypt, an ISIS affiliate in Sinai claimed responsibility for the downing of a Russian passenger jet that killed all 224 people on board.
On November 13, 2015, in France, President François Hollande blamed the Islamic State for terrorist attacks across Paris that killed more than 100 people. The Islamic State claimed responsibility.
On March 22, 2016, in Belgium, a series of deadly terrorist attacks struck Brussels with 2 explosions at the city's main international airport and a third in a subway station at the heart of the city near the headquarters complex of the European Union. How to answer the original question. Is ISIS going to become recognized as a country by the United Nations? No, ISIS will not become recognized as a country by the United Nations. The United Nations helps world affairs by using non-violence acts like appeasement. Since ISIS only uses violence to achieve their power and expansion, they will not be part of the United Nations. However, they will be recognized as a country by major world powers because of their gruesome and very threatening attacks on well-populated cities around the globe.
Is ISIS going to become recognized as a country?
It wasn't funny, Pops.
Jeez, Pop!
No, I'll go last.
Alright. Hello, ladies and gentlemen!
Oh
this
my
is-
God! No way!
Yeah, no shot.
Alright. I'm the. Welcome.
So many leaders for different regions. Bach. Dude, I couldn't.